Let's begin now.
How's everyone, Grant here? Welcome back to another camera comparison video. This time I've got the Google Pixel 5 up against the Samsung Galaxy Note 20 Ultra. Now be sure to stay tuned to the end of the video and I'll give you my top 2 camera improvements on each of these phones. Now as I usually do, I'll show you a bunch of photos and videos in both good and low light conditions. I'll test out the different features of the phone from auto mode to portrait mode to different resolutions on the video to give you a very good idea about how each of these phone cameras are performing to help you decide which of these two might be best for you. So with that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at the photos and videos and I'll come back in the end and let you know what I think. Hey everyone, so here's a quick 1080p 30 frames per second test on the Pixel 5 and the Note 20 Ultra. These are both the ultra wide angle lenses, so I thought I'd start off by showing you what the ultra wide looks like. The Note 20 Ultra should have a slightly wider field of view than the Pixel 5's ultra wide camera, but this is what that looks like here at 1080p. And what's good is on both phones, you actually switch between the lenses, so I can switch into the main lens here on the Pixel 5 and into the main lens there on the Note 20 Ultra. And so that's the field of view that you'll get with the main lenses. And you can kind of see and pay attention to the colors here between the greens and that blue sky. The viewfinder, it looks like the Note 20 Ultra is a little bit more vibrant on that blue, but we'll get it off the computer and you let me know what you see. But we'll pan over here to the right and we'll do a little bit of a zoom test. Now that cell tower is a little bit obscured, so let's see what we can get. But 2 times here on the Pixel 5, and I can go into the 5 times optical on the Note 20 Ultra. And zoom in a little bit more here, 5 times digital on the Pixel 5. And of course the Note 20 Ultra has that ultra zoom periscope lens, and that goes up to 20 times here, you can see. And that actually looks pretty clear, at least in the viewfinder. But the Pixel 5 is topping out at 5 times zoom there. So I'll zoom back out on both lenses or cameras. So back out the main lens on the Note and back out to the main lens on the Pixel 5. So we can test some autofocus here on the post, first with the Pixel 5. So again, pretty quick autofocus here by the Pixel 5 and refocus as well. And with the Note 20 Ultra, let's see, there we go. Took a little bit of time to focus, but because of that larger sensor, it does have a much more shallow depth of field with more of that background blur. But focus up a few times and it seems to be getting it a little bit faster than the first time. But we can go ahead and test some stabilization. As you can see, my dog is in the way a little bit over there, but as you walk down the stairs, let's see what stabilization looks like here on both of these phones. Should be pretty good at 1080p. And we'll pan around the park, see how it handles that changing afternoon sunlight there. Hey everyone, so here's the same scene in the park, this time at 4K 30 frames per second. So this is the ultra wide lens on both phones again. And so you can shoot up to 4K 60 on both phones, but you lose the ability to switch lenses and you lose stabilization, at least on the Note 20 Ultra. So this is 4K 30 and you can still switch between the lenses here. So I can go into the main wide on the Pixel 5 and the main wide on the Note 20 Ultra. And so again, I can pan over here to the right and we can test some zoom range here in 4K. So 2 times there on the Pixel 5 and 5 times telephoto zoom on the Note 20 Ultra. And max here on the Pixel is going to be 5 times. And of course, max here on the Note is going to be still 20 times zoom. So I can back that out on the Note 20 a little bit to 10 times. See what that looks like. And back out to the main lens on both phones. And we'll test autofocus at 4K. So again, first on the Pixel 5, again, focuses up really quickly and refocuses away also fairly quickly. And on the Note 20 Ultra, there we go. Actually a lot quicker this time. And a lot more of that shallow depth of field or blurred out background on the Note 20 than on that Pixel 5. And so again, I'll walk down the stairs and we can test stabilization here at 4K, which should still be very good. They are both still stabilized here, even at 4K 30 frames per second. And again, one last pan around the park here and back up into that sun. everyone, so here is some front-facing video from both the Pixel 5 and the Note 20 Ultra. They're both being shot at 1080p 30 frames per second, which is the max resolution and frame rate on the Pixel 5. The Note 20 Ultra can shoot up to 4K 60 from the front-facing camera, although 4K has no video stabilization on the front camera. So these are both being shot again at 1080p, just to show you the same resolution on both phones. And I can pan around here so you can kind of see how exposure looks into some of the changing light. Sun's behind me there. I'll pan around this way. And I'll start walking a little bit so we can test some of the stabilization here, and you can see what that looks like on both of the front-facing cameras on the Pixel 5 and the Note 20 Ultra. So let me know what you think about the front-facing video quality here outdoors and a bit of this afternoon light on both of these phones. Hey everyone, so here's another front-facing test. This time the Note 20 Ultra is at 4K 60 frames per second, which is its highest resolution and frame rate. Pixel 5 obviously still at 1080p 30, so this would be the difference in quality should you choose to shoot at 4K 60 on the front-facing camera of the Note 20 Ultra. So I'll pan around this way again so you can see the exposure into that light a little bit, what that background now looks like. And you pan around this way, and you're probably not getting the full effect of that 60 frames per second on the Note 20 because I'm exporting this video at 30 frames per second, but this still might give you a sense of what at least 4K might look like here on the Note 20 Ultra, and comparing that to the front-facing 1080p on the Pixel 5. everyone, so here's a test of the Pixel 5 and Note 20 Ultra in a bit of low light here. And this is starting out with the ultra wide angle camera on both phones. And since it's at 1080p, you can switch between the cameras. So this is the main camera on the Pixel 5 and main camera here on the Note 20 Ultra. And I can move into 2x zoom there on the Pixel 5, that's digital, there's no telephoto lens. And 5x zoom with the telephoto lens on the Note 20 Ultra there. And I can zoom in to 5x there digitally on the Pixel 5, so you can see what that digital zoom looks like up against that more optical zoom on the Note 20 Ultra. And so I'll back out to the main camera on both. And I'll pan up a little bit so you can see how that main camera handles that bright street light there. And it looks like the Note 20 Ultra has a little bit more lens flaring going on. And into the night sky, at least in the viewfinder, it looks like the Note 20 Ultra has a little bit more noise, but it could look different once I offload this. But we'll pan this way and start walking to test some stabilization here, as well as this test to see how both of these phones handle some changing lighting conditions. So that was a fairly well-lit area. And as I move this way, it's going to go into a much darker area. So we can see how these phones handle that light transition. Also pay attention for any kind of jitters in the video as it gets darker. Sometimes that happens on phones in low light. And you can see here that I've got these lights illuminating the walkway. I'll stop and pan up. You can see it's pretty dark up here into that night sky. And at least in the viewfinder, it looks like the Pixel 5 is a little bit brighter, but maybe a tad bit noisier. And there's a little bit of balance of some more light and that dark alley there. So just want to give you a quick sample in some different lighting conditions here at 1080p on both phones. Hey everyone, so here we go with the same test, this time in 4K 30 frames per second. And again, we're starting out in the ultra wide camera here on both. And I can actually go back to the main lens on each phone. And I can go into 2x zoom here on the Pixel 5 and 5x optical on the Note 20 Ultra. And I can actually zoom in 5x digital there on the Pixel. Compare that with the optical zoom there on the Note 20. And so we can move into the main camera again on both. And you can see up into that street lamp how that's handling that lens flare here in 4K. And again, the viewfinder, the Note looks a little bit more noisy and seems to be having a little bit more lens flare, but we'll see once we get this off the phone again. So again, we'll do some stabilization test, as well as checking how it handles into this darker lighting condition as you walk this way. And usually sometimes 4K can be darker than 1080p. And this is again at 30 frames per second. Both can record up to 4K 60. But 60 frames per second will also tend to be darker than 30 frames per second. So I wouldn't really suggest that in more extreme dark conditions. And we'll move up here into the night sky again so you can kind of compare how that's looking on each phone, which might be brighter or noisier. In the viewfinder, maybe the Note's a little bit noisier into that sky, while the Pixel may be a little bit brighter, but that could be different once it's finished processing the video. And again, here's a little bit more light offset with that darkness there on the right hand side. So again, just a quick low light clip here in 4K on both phones. Hey everyone, so here's a quick front-facing clip from both the Pixel 5 and the Note 20 Ultra. This is at 1080p, 30 frames per second. And so as you can see here, I'm in a fairly decently lit situation. You can see the night sky up there, how that contrasts with these bright lights behind me, and how the cameras are handling those lights for the most part. Both phones look pretty good. I don't see a ton of lens flaring there. And I'll start walking to show you the stabilization here. And also I'll move into a little bit darker area so you can see how the phones handle some of that light transition as well. And I'll be walking by a fountain here so we can also test the audio and see how much of that fountain it picks up over my voice on both these phones here. And so I'll go ahead and pan around one time. You can see some really bright street lights behind me. And if I pan up, you can see that. Actually, both phones seem to be handling that bright light pretty well. As you can see here, it's a little bit darker here. So I pan back around this way. A little bit darker. In the viewfinder, the Note maybe looks a little bit darker, but of course that all depends on the final video processing. So you let me know what you think about the quality here and a little bit of low light from the front-facing cameras on both these phones. Hey everyone, and so we'll try the same test again, this time with the Note 20 Ultra at 4K 30 frames per second. It can shoot up to 4K 60, but again, in low light, I wouldn't recommend shooting at 60 frames per second. It tends to be a little bit darker than what you're seeing here. And the Pixel 5 maxes out at 1080p on the front camera, so that's still what you're seeing here. But I want to compare the max resolution of 1080p from the Pixel 5 to the 4K resolution here on the Note 20 Ultra front-facing camera. See if you notice any difference here. And again, you can see how it does into those bright lights behind me. And again, we'll do some walking to test the stabilization here between both front-facing cameras. And so again, I'll be passing into a little bit darker area. You can hear a train behind me. I'm not sure how well that's doing for the audio. And again, see how much of this fountain noise these phones pick up over my voice. And I can pause here and pan around to show you some of those brighter lights again behind me. You can see that. And we'll finish up here in a little bit more darkness so you can see how this 4K is comparing to the 1080p here on the Pixel 5 and the Note 20 Ultra's 4K. So there you go, front-facing camera, 1080p on the Pixel 5, 4K 30 on the Note 20 Ultra. Okay, so now that you've seen all the photos and videos for yourself, let me know in the comments which phone you preferred and why. Now, I'll give you my top 2 camera improvements on each of these phones, but first, just to sum it up, I think you're going to prefer the Google Pixel 5 if you want a more point-and-shoot style of phone, something that's going to give you the better photo quality more consistently and more often in a more point-and-shoot style. And also, if you're going to like more natural colors, you're going to definitely like the Pixel 5 more. Now, I think you're going to gravitate and like the Note 20 Ultra more if you want more flexibility, if you like colors that pop, if you want more flexibility from a zoom lens, from a wider ultra-wide lens, and also manual mode. If you like those things, I think you're going to really like the Note 20 Ultra. And so now, as far as my top 2 improvements on each of these cameras, as far as the Google Pixel 5, I think number 1 is going to be video quality. I think Pixel has gotten a bad rap on video quality, but they've been steadily improving it, and it's noticeably better here on the Pixel 5 than it was on the Pixel 4. The colors are a little bit brighter, not as washed out as previous versions of the Pixels, and even the 4K 60 hangs with even the best camera phones out there, including the Note 20 Ultra. And the second thing that I think is really improved on the Pixel 5 is its night mode. You can do night mode on any lens, and you also have portrait night mode. So portrait shots at night used to be pretty much worthless. They didn't come out very well because you need a lot of light for those portrait mode shots. But now there is portrait night mode, and they actually come out looking pretty good. So you have that flexibility. You've got night mode on all lenses, including portrait night mode. So I think those are the 2 improvements that Google made there that I really like on the Pixel 5. Now, as far as the 2 improvements that I think Samsung has really made here is number 1 on its front-facing camera. Day shots still aren't very good, but they've got the night mode on the front-facing camera, and that's probably one of the best on any phone, and it can even challenge the Pixel 5 here. And number 2 improvement on the Note 20 Ultra is its live focus mode or its portrait mode. Samsung's portrait mode or live focus mode hasn't historically been too good. It's been tricky to use and kind of hit or miss, but this live focus mode this year on the Note 20 Ultra and some other Samsung phones, live focus is working a lot more consistently for both people and inanimate objects. So I think those are the 2 main improvements that I see on this Note 20 Ultra this year. So that's going to do it for what I think about how each of these phones performed, and I think who would prefer which. But again, let me know in the comments which one you preferred and why, and let's continue our conversation on there. And as always, thanks for watching.